Welcome students to another class of BA Part 2 English Literature. In our last lesson, we had studied about background to the Indian woman writer in English, Kamala Das, and we studied about her biographical account and a background to her poem, which is prescribed in your course, My Grandmother's House. I asked you to read the poem at least 3 times aloud and try to feel the rhythm and the rhyme in the poem, or any important words or striking words you feel you don't understand well, so that you can underline them, and maybe you can ask them on the group, or you can yourself look up into the dictionary to find out the meaning. So today we begin the class again with the poem and its detailed explanation. So let's read together My Grandmother's House once again. There is a house now far away where once I received love. And then you can see these dots which mean ellipses, that is a blank. And when we talk about poetry or writing, if we want to express some kind of a blankness of a feeling or an emotion or something which is felt but cannot be expressed, then we use this figurative language of punctuation marks of ellipses. That woman died. So who is that woman? Here that woman refers to the grandmother of the poet. So there is a house now far away where once I received love. So this word far away, the home is wherever it was originally also, but the persona has moved away from that place because of her marriage, and therefore that house has gone far away. And the line that where once I received love, so there is this feeling of yearning for love. From whom? The grandmother who has now died. The house withdrew into silence. So here we can find that the house is again personified, because it is as if a person who, being sad, withdrew itself into silence. And actually it means that nobody lived in that house now since the death of the grandmother, so it has become silent. Snakes moved among books. So the house was filled with the library, probably, where there were a lot of books. And as we have seen from the biography, Kamala Das's mother was also of a literary background, and so their home must have been filled with so many books. But now there were nobody to read those books, so snakes were moving around. It may not literally mean that snakes were there, but it reflects that a home which is closed for a long time will have various kinds of insects moving around, as there is nobody in the house to disturb them. I was then too young, so she would have probably not been able to read those books at that time in her grandmother's home, because of being a very young child, to read, and my blood turned cold like the moon. So moon reflects the coldness of the moon, which is all alone. So how often I think of going there. So this reflects her lack of ability, or lack of finding time to go back to that home of her grandmother, due to whatever pressures she may have and occupations after her marriage. To peer through blind eyes of windows. Again, there is this personification where the windows is seen as a person having blind eyes. Here, blind eyes means that the room is empty, nobody is there, so everything is dark. Or just listen to the frozen air. The air there has also frozen, means stand still, because nobody opens or closes the door, so it is frozen. Or in wild despair, that is pain, pick an armful of darkness to bring it here to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. So the whatever she can bring from there is just darkness, which will be faithful like a dog and sit in her bedroom. You cannot believe darling, can you, that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved. These lines reflect that whomever she is now with, a close person, she is informing that person that her present situation is so starkly different from what it was in the past. The past was glorious, where she was loved and felt proud of. I, who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in small change. So here the persona is through the last line reflecting her pain and her loneliness in the present time. So this was a brief interpretation and paraphrasing of the poem. Let's move further to study the theme in detail. So as you must have noted, the poem My Grandmother's House has 16 lines and is composed of a single stanza of free verse, so there is no set rhyme scheme. The lines alternate between pentameters and pentameters, that is the stress marks which are used, stressed words longer than shorter, to sharpen the contrast between past and present, between being loved and not loved. So how the theme also correlates with the way the poem has been written, that is the poetical style. The basic theme is that of lost love, nostalgia, with the speaker bemoaning the fact that once she lived in a house where she was loved, but now her circumstances mean that she has no love in her life. So it also talks about the speakers looking back to a time as a child when she could enjoy love in comfortable warmth and of her grandmother in a contented household. So probably whenever you also think about your grandmother or your nanny home, you will always recall it with lots of fond memories, because we do receive lot of cuddling and joy and pampering from our grandparents. So this is a very common feeling which the poetess has expressed that the memories of the childhood days when we visit our grandmother's home. But in this case, the poetess she says that how she remembers that period with lot of longing, because at present she does not have any kind of a such kind of a feeling. So you will realize that the grandmother's poem is basically reflecting upon this feature of our childhood. What is the difference? But the difference is that there is a lot of pain, because now the poetess does not have the same kind of love which she had in her childhood. So this is the basic difference, and therefore the loss of love and the feeling of being alone is a important feature of this poem. And the juxtaposition or bringing together of then and now, past and present, creates the tension within this single stanza poem and gives the reader a stark picture of how circumstances have altered for the speaker, that now she is bereft or without any such longing of being belonged or loved. So the focus is on the grandmother's house. What all does the persona remembers when she thinks of her grandmother's home? That would be pointed out in these lines. This poem, you must also note, first appeared in an anthology or a collection of poems titled Summer Time in Calcutta in 1965. So as you must have just realized after reading it twice or thrice, that here there are very personal feelings of the poet. So it is an autobiographical poem, because when we read her autobiographical novel My Story, we come to know that she was attached with her grandmother and used to visit her grandmother's home, remember her grandmother's home as a child, and her longing for that house in Malabar. She is reminded of the ancestral house where she had received immense love and affection from her grandmother, and therefore, in these lines, she remembers her grandmother's house, and the reader can presume, and the woman is the grandmother or the actual speaker. When the speaker, when the woman passed away, that is the grandmother, the house became silent. Nobody lived there now. Nature, in the form of snakes and other insects, which are a symbol of danger, coldness, they started moving on the books. And the speaker was at that time too young, so she could not have understood those books really. And a note of pessimism, sadness, regret runs throughout the action of the poem. And this poem, basically, what is the tone of the poem? Painful, unfulfilled desire to visit her grandmother's house, to which she is deeply and emotionally attached. So, the persona, that is the poet herself, is shocked to learn about the house, learn that the house is all in ruin after the death of her grandmother. She suffers in silence due to the wear and tear it has undergone in her absence. So the silence in that home is almost like death, and she regrets that she cannot go there often. She could not read that time, and she now is thinking about that house. She wants to, in the further lines 7 to 10, peer in through the windows, where the writer says that the blind eyes of the windows, because she won't be able to see anything at all. She won't be able to go back in her memory to once again feel the love. Even though the air may be frozen, she wants to go back. And she will be so overcome with pain, despair, that she will bring back. Nothing else is available there in that home but darkness, a reminder of her past. So, this is how the speaker conveys her desperateness. Even darkness would be sufficient in reducing or alleviating her current pain and crisis. Moreover, the intensity of her grief is suggestively conveyed by the ellipses, that is, the dots, which I have talked about in the beginning of the lesson in the form of a few dots. She has also used suggestive visual imagery of, as I told you, blind eyes of the windows and the frozen air to convey the idea of death and desperation. In the last 11 to 16 lines, the poet wishes and longs to visit her grandmother's house and relive her past, to which she is emotionally attached since her childhood. She says that no one will believe that she had some of the best memories of her grandmother's house, and begs at the door of strangers for love and care, because no one is there to love her. So now she has to seek and ask from others for that feeling of belonging and love. The poem ends the poets end the poem Grandmother's House with memories, hope and desire in a place of security and genuine love for her. So, with this, we come to the end of the explanation of the poem Grandmother's House. And what important points you need to know is that it is an autobiographical poem. The tone of the poem is very nostalgic. The poet expresses her lack of warmth in the present time. So, we can say the poem contrasts between past and present, between being loved and not loved, and though it's a small poem, it conveys the feeling very powerfully. So, students, you need to read this poem again to understand, and do read the biography of the poet in detail, and also read other works by Kamala Das, so that you are able to appreciate her work more clearly. Thank you.